Welcome everybody to another episode of Dolphins Brawl. I am your host Louis Sung, and with me as always is my co-host Chad Ronenbaum. How you doing today, Chad?
Doing good, Lewis. Good to finally get to the end of the season. It was a long season and Super Bowl weekend, so I'm doing well.
Oh yeah, and what's the hat we got on today?
Old school Dolphin stocking hat today. It's snowing where I'm at, so.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're an Iowan with all the snow that you can handle.
It is snowing right now. Yep, plenty of snow.
So is snowballs and snowmen like the norm over there for you guys, or is that something that is that overrated?
Depends on the weather. If it's in the 20s, then you can do that stuff. Otherwise, it's too cold, so the snow doesn't pack. So if you're from an area that snows a lot, you would understand what I'm saying. But,
yeah.
My kids did build an igloo last week, if that counts for anything.
An igloo, like they grabbed like ice chunks and everything, just kind of like made a little brick house out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. You use a little device that makes squares out of snow, and then you, after you get it all built, you want to cover it with water a little bit.
Dang,
mist, and then it freezes. Then you got an igloo.
Dang, that's like the winter version of a treehouse. That honestly sounds fun.
Yeah, I probably don't see a lot of that in Miami, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you don't see that in Miami much now. Alrighty, so got some other stuff to talk about today. So a lot of it's actually kind of funny that Ron's not with us today because Ron has been saying I don't want to talk about the draft. Well, pretty much that's what we're going to talk about today because Tua. That's probably what I'm going to just title is just lots and Tua because that's what everybody's talking about today. Because I don't know why, I don't know when this happened, but the Miami Dolphins have put on a full court press to make it known that they really like Tua Tagovailoa, and ironically enough, Tua Tagovailoa has made it very clear that he likes the Dolphins. And we're going to get all into that discussion in just a minute. But make sure that you all check out Fanatics. It's a great place to get some cool merchandise. We're going to have some of our own Brawl Network merchandise on there, so you can go and check that out. So go ahead and go to the fanatics.com, Fanatics, to see what kind of football merch you can find there. I'm sure with Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of stuff to check out, okay? Okay. So, Miami Dolphins. Tua Tagovailoa he's ever since the 2019 season started, he has been the quote unquote target for fans and presumably the Dolphins as well. And it seemed like they weren't going to be able to get him. Then Tua hurt his hip, and now the medicals have basically made him drop in the draft. He didn't do anything in the Senior Bowl, obviously, so he wasn't there. But Justin Herbert managed to put on a good show, so all of a sudden his stock is rising. Meanwhile, Tua's continues to fall because now Tua is very much an unknown still. He says that he's going to go to the combine and talk to teams. He's not really going to do much as far as anything else, because he won't be able to do running and stuff like that. But he's going to go talk to teams and stuff like that. And basically, we've been hearing a lot of talk from both camps that seems to indicate that the Miami Dolphins and drafting Tua is all but a guarantee at this point. Everybody's been projecting it, everybody's been wanting it, and it seems like everybody, including Tua's camp, wants Tua to sit for a year anyway. So it's a very interesting situation that's going on, and I'm going to get your thoughts on all this, Chad. There are more factors that go into this, and we'll discuss it a little bit later, but how do you feel about this, like, mutual appreciation fest that seems to be going on between Tua and the Dolphins all of a sudden?
I don't know that the appreciation is so much on the Dolphin side. I think it's being portrayed. I think Stephen Ross today just said his health is a concern. And so I think a healthy Tua, Miami absolutely is interested in. That's going to be the big question is Tua's health. And I can kind of give you an idea pretty confidently how this is going to go. There's no way Tua is going to get a CAT scan and he's going to have a person read that CAT scan that says this doesn't look good, he's never going to play again. That's not going to happen. It's just not. The Tua, they're going to do anything in their power to manipulate the report that they get that says everything's on schedule, whether it's on schedule or not, because there's millions of dollars in play on where he gets drafted. And so when you get into April, you're going to have scans to look at, and Miami can have whoever they want look at the scans, look at them, and it's just going to come down to medical opinion on whether or not he's progressing as would be expected, and that's all that is. What that doesn't tell you is there going to be any decreased mobility for Tua because of it? What are the likelihoods that he's going to re-injure the hip? And what are the likelihoods he's going to have complications from it? Like maybe it'll inflame or something and make it hard to play on. And finally, you don't really know how that's going to impact how long he can play on it. So when you factor all those things in, I kind of commented this today on Twitter that you're in a fantasy world if you think by the time the draft rolls around, you're going to know whether or not Tua is going to be physically be able to return and play football at the level he was at Alabama. So you have to understand there absolutely is going to be a risk involved with a Tua pick, no matter what his CAT scan says. With that being said, this week, you mentioned this a little bit, Lewis. A lot has changed with Herbert. Herbert looked really good in the Senior Bowl. And in the NFL, there's a lot of value on how good your arm is. And there's certain routes, definitely deeper outs, 15, 20, 25-yard outs, how well you can throw the deep ball. Different things like that factor into NFL scouts and general manager player personnel decision makers, who they want to draft. And in my opinion right now is Herbert may be the number one quarterback in this draft for a lot of NFL personnel. Now, I'm kind of glad we're not in the Bengals position because the Bengals almost have no choice but to draft Burrow or trade the pick out because Burrow rewrote the record books in college football, and he's absolutely a good college prospect. If you step back and you don't worry about specifically the person or the records or anything like that, and you just look at history on what quarterbacks were the best in the NFL and where they were drafted, and you start to figure out that position in particular, the quarterback position, it's really hard to tell how successful someone's going to be at the pro level relative to the other positions. And so if you were to ask me, it's a flip of the coin, who's going to be a better pro quarterback, Burrow or Herbert? Because to me, it's a 50-50 flip right now. I don't think Burrow is any more likely to have a successful NFL career over Herbert. The other factor I'm kind of mentioning in there right now is people don't realize that, I think, from the fan base, but there's maneuvering going on, and a lot of people are centering that around the Lions pick because that's where things are going to get interesting. I think it's almost a certainty, assuming nobody gets in trouble or injured or anything, that Burrow is going to be the number one pick and Chase Young is going to be the number two pick. I think that's pretty well set in place. And so the number three pick's where it's going to get interesting. And I see a lot of fans politicking that Miami should move up for Tua, which I'm very against, just because I think he's going to be there easily at 5 for the health reasons I just said. And I think the maneuvering right now is the Detroit Lions are trying to decide, do they want to select Justin Herbert or do they want to trade out for whoever wants to move up and get him? Because in my mind, he's the clear-cut number 2 quarterback in the NFL draft right now. It's simply, he's big, he can run, he's got a really big arm. That's everything most teams want out of their quarterback. Tua has a lot of intangibles to him that he's excited about, but with the injury history, I don't think there's many teams at all in the NFL that are going to be willing to risk their number 1 pick this year. This is a GM's job, this is a head coach's job, to take the risk on Tua when you could draft somebody like Herbert who's NFL ready to start right away. So I think you'll see in this draft that the Herbert is going to be the second quarterback taken, I believe, before the Dolphins pick. With that said, for Miami, they're kind of in that unique position where they have 3 number 1 picks. And they have Josh Rosen on the team as well. And so from my standpoint, this isn't necessarily what I think will happen, but from my standpoint, there's only 4 quarterbacks in this draft Miami should be interested in at all. And that would be obviously Burrow and Herbert, and then Tua and Love. Jordan Love, I think, watching him at the Senior Bowl, he's got the ability that you want in an NFL quarterback. He's got a really good release. He's got a really good-looking arm. He's a pretty good athlete. Very inexperienced, I would say, based on not playing at a very high competition level in college. and he clearly made lots of mental issues in college. So he would definitely be somebody I would label as a project. But with that said, he has the skill set to succeed in the NFL. So beyond that, beyond Jordan Love, I don't see who the Miami Dolphins would draft that's a better prospect than Josh Rosen. You can talk about other prospects. I really don't like Jalen Hurts' slower release. I don't see Eason being a better prospect than Rosen. And so you kind of get to that point. Why draft some of these second-tier guys when we have Josh Rosen on our team? So for me, if the Dolphins are going to go quarterback, it's got to be one of those four guys. And I think those are pretty well the quarterbacks being mentioned to be a first-round selection. So for Miami, I don't think they're going to move up. That's just my gut opinion. I think they've acquired these picks. Miami has a lot of holes to fill, and I don't think they're going to move up for anybody right now. I think they're just going to sit still at 5. If somebody decides to jump up and take Tua, that could happen. But if you want to give me a team, I can probably tell you why it won't happen, Lewis, like why they're going to move up for Tua. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion. And I think today the comments on Tua's side make it even less likely. And I think Tua's realizing that he could fall based on the injury concern, and they realize that Miami is highly interested in him, so they want to get that top 5 guaranteed pick. I think that's their number one goal. But with him making comments, like they clearly want to play for Miami, and so no team wants to draft a guy who can't play right away and doesn't really want to be there. With his dad and with where Tua is at, that could become a very big distraction for you in year one. And finally, I guess from the contractual standpoint, Lewis, if you draft Tua, right now with the way things are prior to any changes in the collective bargaining agreement, the quarterbacks and the number one picks, the first round picks, doesn't matter the position, you're getting a 5-year deal. Basically, you sign a 4-year deal, and then you're guaranteed a 5th-year option for that player. And so that makes number one picks appealing, because if you're an NFL team, the way it is right now, if you draft somebody, they're far more affordable than when you sign somebody to their second contract. And so the economics of Tua also work against him, the team wanting to move up for him, because you're really having to redshirt him the first year. This isn't a situation where, no, we want to give him time to have him get ready, adjust to the speed of the program and the complexities of it. This is a guy who physically should not probably play at all in 2020. He should spend the whole 2020 rehabbing his hip and try to get that hip in a position where it's the most stable possible for him to have a longer NFL career. And I can't think of any scenario where it would make sense for him to rush that and get back onto the game field and play on it in the NFL. So knowing that if you're a team, you're essentially paying a high amount of money, that the first round picks get paid more money. So you're taking more money out of your cap. You're bringing in a player who cannot contribute to your team at all in 2020. And you're basically paying him for a year to just rehab. And I can't think of many teams right now that have the luxury to say, yeah, this guy looks like he could be a good prospect if he gets healthy. Yeah, we'll give up our first round pick and we'll pay him a year to not do anything for our team this year because he might be a good quarterback down the road. Those teams they're not the only teams that can do that are at the back end of the draft. They're teams like the Saints and the Patriots who have their quarterbacks, but they know in the coming year or two they're going to need a new quarterback. So they're comfortable maybe sitting Tua, for a year on the bench while they, compete for a playoff this year with their current quarterback. Miami is that only team right now where they have those extra number one picks. And so if you're Miami, you can say, we'll give up one of our first round picks just to stash Tua, because we're going to draft 2 other guys in the first round, not to mention all the other picks following that. So Miami can kind of pull it off. And so I think there's that reality now for the Tua camp that Miami is their best chance to get a high draft slot.
More than likely, you're right about that, especially from the agent standpoint. It seems so surreal. The situation screams that this is what they wanted all along. They're saying that the whole Tua and his whole family comes down to Miami and says how much they absolutely love Miami. And it's not even that, we love Miami. It's that, what was it the dad said? He really hopes that the Cincinnati Bengals fall in love with Joe Burrow because he does not want his son to be drafted by the Bengals. Because presumably he wants to go to a franchise that is dedicated to winning, as if the Bengals are not dedicated to winning. Which it's, and this is, I guess, is where the discussion comes in of how concerned are we about the whole familial ties thing. Because I get it, I do. A lot of the, I'm gonna go ahead and say, maybe you can debate this with me, Chad, because from my understanding, the American, quote unquote American culture is very individualistic. You are a grown man. You do not need your parents giving you any input on anything that you do. From everything from once you go to college and whatever is your decision to make, and nobody else should have any say in what you do from this point on. In other cultures, mine and apparently Tua's, like the Samoan culture and all that, the family has a big influence on things. They give you input. They tell you if it's a good idea or a bad idea. They tell you that this is something you should do because they think that it's in your best interest. A lot of people are very concerned about this, and again, I can understand why, given the differences in how people perceive these types of situations. We've already seen this happen, presumably, to some extent with the Minkah Fitzpatrick debacle. We know that his mom was very vocal about how her son was being used in Miami. They didn't, quote-unquote, appreciate the fact that he was being used as a versatile person instead of being put where he was supposed to thrive in. And ultimately, he wound up throwing a fit. Not Minkah's mom. It's not like that Minkah's mom was the reason Minkah left. Minkah wanted out, period. It wasn't Minkah's mom who said you should go out. Minkah himself said he doesn't want to be there, pretty much. So he went to Pittsburgh. And he's basically doing the same thing he did in Miami now, because he's going to be versatile again, but he's happy there. He's happy in Pittsburgh. He's just not happy here. So what did that have to do with his mom, per se? I don't really think it had as much to do, other than there was a voice in his ear, which she didn't make the final decision for him. There was just another input. And maybe you can tell me more about the whole Ted Ginn situation, because when I keep hearing stuff about Ted Ginn's family, I don't really get the whole thing because I wasn't quite as into it by the time Ted Ginn was around. But I know the jokes about, Ted Ginn's grandma and all that jazz. Maybe you can tell me about it. But it's like this concept of Tua's dad has too much influence on him. Maybe it's because of the way I was raised. Maybe it's because of the way I view the world. But I just don't see it so much as an issue. Because even if Tua's dad does have some level of influence over what his son does, what exactly is it that we're worried is going to happen as a result? That he's going to say something the Dolphins aren't going to like? That he's going to say something that will sabotage the potential of his son reaching his greatest point? Because any parent worth their salt wants the very best for their children. And if what Tua's dad wants is for him to go to Miami, sit down a year, rehab that hip, and then go out onto the field with a team who is dedicated to winning, then I struggle to see the issue, because that feels like we're literally seeing things eye to eye with Tua's father. So what is the problem exactly?
I'm not too worried about it. I suppose there's different degrees of what you're saying. Now, I think the most important aspect now with the family issue for Tua is I think they're heavily involved with where he's going. And so they're being very vocal about where they want him to go. And in the end of the day, his father's wanting the best situation for his son. And for multiple reasons, I think Miami is a very good situation for Tua because even Stephen Ross admitted that today. They're not focused on trying to win a Super Bowl in 2020, and they're very comfortable, I think, with Tua not playing in 2020, where other teams are going to be under a lot of pressure to get a return on him quicker. So I understand the benefit of it for the family standpoint. But when I look back at the Eli Manning draft, that was obviously 16, 17 years ago. But Eli Manning was drafted by the Chargers, and they were very vocal right at the draft that they didn't want him playing. And this is Archie Manning standing right beside his son. And you want to talk about more concern about somebody interfering, because there's interfering with, maybe.
Well, hold on. Let me cut you off real quick. You said Archie didn't want him in with the Chargers. Did Eli want to be there?
No, neither one. They were standing side by side and openly saying, we do not want to play for the San Diego Chargers. And, that was unprecedented for people to be saying that. And the Chargers were like, man, what do we do? We've got a player who doesn't want to be here. This is trouble. So they traded him, to San Diego, and then they went and drafted Phillip Rivers. And that's how that went down. But that's a situation where I look at it and I'm like, it's a whole different level if your quarterback's playing and your father's basically critiquing, the head coach or the quarterback coach doesn't know what they're doing. Because you would be worried about that with Archie Manning. He was an NFL quarterback for a long time. Clearly the Mannings know how to raise kids that know how to play quarterback.
Oh, yeah, they're NFL royalty.
And so, that to me is a really, really concerning. I don't see Tua's dad being that way, where it's like, I don't think he's going to be criticizing what Miami's doing with him. I think he may be involved with what he wants for contracts and stuff. So he could be a little bit more difficult to negotiate with on a second contract. That's where I would look at that with Tua right now, because his agents kind of has a history of not being the easiest guy to deal with. Miami has dealt with him before. I think he was Ricky Williams' agent, if I'm not mistaken.
He and Ross apparently have a good connection, so there is that. But anyway.
But as the draft pick, I'm not too worried, because you have a salary cap on a rookie cap on what you can pay anyway. So it's not like there's going to be a whole bunch of to-do over what Tua is getting paid for his first contract. But that's the most I'd worry about with his dad. The extreme, we've been through the extreme, Lewis, and that's if the significant other or family member is causing trouble.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Miko. Jesus.
Yeah, Miko, I mean, that's when you got a situation where the spouse is trying to give out information on what's said in the locker room, and they're being highly critical of one of them. Like, she was really ripping Ryan Tannehill at the time, saying how bad of a quarterback he was and how people in the locker room were against him. And it was a very divisive time, I would say, in the history of the Dolphins. But, I would still say to this day, Miami liked Brent Grimes on the field. I think they would have gladly kept him for another contract, maybe for another 2 or 3 years. But she had just caused so much trouble. They wanted the whole Grimes thing gone. And so I don't foresee him being that way. There's been a little, some of the reports make you raise your eyebrows a little. There was reports that he was difficult with Alabama to his dad. And I've read that and this is obviously not something I know is fact. This is just something I'd read. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Saying that in front, but that he was demanding a lot of stuff from Alabama for the next one, for Tua's little brother to play. So whether or not he's a lot of trouble or not, I don't know. It wouldn't impact me, though, and where I drafted him. I don't foresee him being so much trouble that it would impact what he's doing on your team.
But and again, it's like, it feels like, if anything, it's a culture clash, that they feel like this is not how it should be. He should be making his own decisions. Why is his father even involved? So
what is Tua, 21? I mean, he's kind of a kid still.
Yeah, I get that, but it's like, this is what it is, and like, this is why I said, like, quote unquote American culture, because once you're out on your own, you're on your own.
I think that's something a lot of people don't quite appreciate, that somebody like Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's 37. Tom Brady's 40. Drew Brees, even Aaron Rodgers. These guys that they're been in the league a long time. They're I don't want to use the term grown men, but they're older. And I'm thinking back like what I was like when I was 21, and I mean, I don't know that I'd feel comfortable making all my own choices on something that large of scale that's going to affect the rest of your life. Kind of without your parents there, kind of involved at that point in your life. Now, if Tua is in the NFL and we're talking 8 years from now, and he doesn't want to go anywhere without his dad, I would find that a little bit more strange. But I think it's understandable with where they're at in the draft process that his father would be kind of involved. Because look, this isn't a normal situation. You've got a kid that he's 21, probably was going to be the number 1 overall pick. He's had a severe injury, and nobody knows right now. Like, it wouldn't shock me if the medical is concerning at all that Tua will fall right out of the first round. And so, I don't know where I'd be if you're 21 years old trying to think about how do I navigate the situation I'm in right now, because it's there. I would say there's probably a handful of teams that have already taken him completely off their board. They just don't want to deal with the what ifs of his injury. And so, that would be really, really tough, I would think, on what things do you say and not say about your injury? What things do you say and not say about other quarterbacks in Alabama and everything? Because if he starts saying things that are kind of radical or seem like he might be a problem, then he suddenly falls way off people's draft charts. So that's probably his most trusted advisor is his own dad.
And he has been saying some things that make you happy. He's also been saying some things that make you wonder, because Tua himself, I'm not talking about the dad, Tua himself has said that he would love to be in Miami. He loves the idea of Miami, which is great. That's what we want, right? We want him to be here. It's not an Eli thing or, I don't want to go to Miami. It's anything, they don't want to go to Cincinnati, which works for us. Good, whatever. But he also, he even freely admitted, he didn't try to talk about how, I'm totally going to be ready. He didn't try to hype himself up. You can call this a mistake, or you can call it him being transparent. You can look at it however you want, but he basically said that he's not sure if his hip is going to heal or not. And, I mean, that alone doesn't exactly help his draft stock. If even he's not sure, that doesn't exactly scream confidence.
No, I mean, he's being honest, but I mean, there's no reason not to be, because everybody already knows that. He's going to have a CAT scan, and that CAT scan is going to show how well his hip is healing. And that was where I was leading that to start off, is you're going to get an opinion on a CAT scan. The medical professional that gives the opinion that Tua's seen is going to give probably almost certainly that it looks like he's on track. Now, what other people is like, who Miami independently hires to read his CAT scan, says could be completely different. But it's absolutely possible, and that's what he's admitting, that if that CAT scan looks worrisome, and maybe they've got to do another procedure, or if this isn't looking like it's healing exactly like we want to, you can't really hide that. What are you going to do to suddenly shady to say, I don't want to make my scans available to anybody? If you do that, nobody's going to draft you. And so he's probably kind of preemptively, he knows that, even as a person right now, that if that CAT scan doesn't look clear, he's probably not going to be a number one draft pick. That's just going to be the reality for him. He may never play again. He may find that out in a matter of weeks. And I don't know what Miami fans on Twitter, it's crazy the following that is for him right now. I've ran a few Twitter polls, and I'm asking who would you draft, basically, and it's like 80-90% of the fans all want to draft Tua. That's for that. And they're doing that without any idea if he's even physically able to play. So that gives you an idea of the stigma, I guess, around it. But that's something that would be an interesting come to terms with, is if his scan comes back and that verdict is he's not going to be able to play. That's going to be a lot of people like, oh my God, freak out. But I don't know. I do feel I'm seeing a lot of Twitter if people wanting to trade up, and I'm very, very against trading up right now for the Dolphins. So I don't know if you're in agreement with that. But
no, we've been discussing the whole trade up thing for a while, and I've been saying too that I don't want to trade up. I hate the idea of trading up. I want to keep all those draft picks because, I mean, every time I do a mock draft, I am anticipating having 3 first-round draft picks. I like the idea of three first-round draft picks. And the only way you get to trade up, especially that high up in the draft, is you're willing to give up one of them. And I don't want to do that. There's a reason everybody wants the first-round picks. There's a reason that first round takes one night all by itself so that everybody can come onto the podium and get their picture with the commissioner, because these are supposed to be the cream of the crop, the best of the best. And, if the heavens open up and Chris Greer somehow manages to nail all 3 picks, then you have essentially cemented the cornerstone on which the Dolphins will spend the next 5 years at least. And build around.
I don't think they have a choice. A quarterback isn't going to change that. I've been making this point for Cincinnati right now.
Yeah, Tua no. But I'm talking about in general. Like, let's say you get Tua, and then you still have 2 more picks for guys like, I don't know, Mekhi Becton,
Yeah.
or maybe you want to go and get Gross Matos or something along those lines. A pass rusher, a left tackle. I wouldn't not even be upset at this point if it was like the top guard anymore, because we just
We need it all.
we need everything, but we need
need a lot.
cornerstones.
Oh yeah, and I think that's we're going to see how free agency unfolds, and that'll tell us some. I'm still sticking to my guns. I think they're going to pick up a couple of the best offensive linemen in free agency. But look, there's no secret. This team needs 4 or 5 new offensive linemen. We probably need 3 or 4 new defensive linemen. You're talking about 6 or 7 players alone that we need, and we can't fill those with secondhand free agency guys. We need to get talent up front. And really, the only way you can effectively do that is to draft those guys. We need to use high picks on guys in the trenches. It may not excite a lot of people, but we need a left tackle. We need a right tackle. We need some guards. We need another D tackle. We definitely need some defensive ends. And there's a lot of talent in the draft for that. And I can't imagine this. You want to talk about put your franchise back as you trade off the talent we traded off, acquire all those picks, and then package those all together for one quarterback that may not even physically be able to make it back. That's a good way to end up like the Cleveland Browns win 1 game in 2 years.
And also fired.
And fired, yeah. I don't see that. And I've been making this point several times with Cincinnati, Lewis. I think the worst thing the Bengals could do is draft Joe Burrow right now, because what is he really going to do? They need a lot. And they don't have, in Miami, at least right now, we've got all those picks. The Bengals don't. And so they desperately want a team to trade several number ones and move up to try to rebuild their team. Because I just don't see putting a rookie Joe Burrow in behind center instead of Andy Dalton and going up to play the Ravens and the Steelers and the Browns. That's a pretty tough sledding for a rookie quarterback. I just don't see him changing that much of the fortunes for the Bengals right now. Now, maybe in 2 or 3 years, if they over time get a team around him, he could turn into a franchise quarterback. But just like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's any more likely Burrow's going to pan out than Herbert's going to pan out. You have about the same odds if you don't worry about getting caught up with where they're at in the draft. I mean, I think about Marino. He was the 20th overall pick in the draft. Tom Brady was a 5th-round pick. Look at the Tannehill draft. Russell Wilson was a 2nd-round pick. And so that position, it's not like, you can kind of get a pretty good feel if you're drafting an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, even if they're not like dominant Pro Bowl players, if you get those really big, talented players, they still typically work out to be pretty solid football players. You can completely miss on a quarterback, not even close. And it becomes extremely risky to trade a lot of resources to move up. So I'm 100% with you, Lewis. I think it'd be insane for the Dolphins to, I've seen people promoting trade all of our 1st-round picks to move up to 3rd to get Tua. And I'm thinking, trade 3 1st-round picks to move up 2 spots in the draft? That's 3 potential Pro Bowl players for one player who's not even going to play next year. I can't imagine we'd be that crazy to give up that kind of capital in the situation.
That's the QB wins crowd, the one that says all that matters is Tua and everything else will fall into place. And it's no. If there's any team in the league who proved that quarterback is but a piece of the puzzle, it's Tennessee. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean that's still sticks in my mind. Like, we had Ryan Tannehill all those years, and first year another team has him, he takes him to the AFC Championship game. In a large part because he had taken the time to develop.
And Derrick Henry and offensive line, all the pieces came together in one cohesive unit to make a team that was playoff ready. It didn't matter if Tannehill had turned out to be Marino 2.0. The stuff that was around him just wasn't enough. You might have gotten to the playoffs, but you weren't going to win it.
No, everybody wants the next Patrick Mahomes. I mean, that's what everybody's gunning for, but it's a lot easier said than done. A healthy Tua, I'm excited about him as a prospect, and I won't be disappointed if we use our 5th-round pick and roll the dice, because honestly, I don't think that's a bad situation for Miami if you come into 2020 with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your starter, which was pretty well confirmed today.
Yeah, he's going to play.
And Josh Rosen with him. And so if Fitzpatrick gets hurt or if he doesn't come out of the gate pretty hard, you can say, well, let's see what we got with Rosen, and you just leave Tua stashed. I'm all for that, and I know you are too, Lewis,
Mm-hmm.
because we've been saying you keep getting quarterbacks until you get your quarterback, and so yeah, like if Josh Rosen comes in and just lights it up this year, becomes suddenly the Ryan Tannehill and takes us into the playoffs and looking good, I'm like, all right, so we'll have Josh Rosen and Tua, and when Tua gets healthy, maybe we trade Tua off, But I would rather have that like Josh Rosen be the backup and Tua be the backup of the backup. So we've got multiple possibilities to get a franchise quarterback
Mm-hmm.
that way. But I don't give up a bunch of number one picks to go get a guy with the hope that he's going to be, the next savior, because it's just as likely that even if Tua gets back to healthy, he just won't adapt that well to the pro game. And so you just don't know that. And so, but we've got to use those picks, Vic. And I'm not even opposed to trading back. I'm still convinced that the Chargers are chasing Tom Brady really hard. I really feel that's the case. And it was just a little curious this week with them announcing flat out that Philip Rivers was not returning. And, why would you do that? And to me, that's because they're worried that Tom Brady's going to re-sign with the Patriots. Because, obviously you can't negotiate with anybody until March without that being tampering. But the Patriots are negotiating with Tom Brady right now. I think Robert Kraft wants Tom Brady to stay. I don't think Tom Brady wants to stay very bad.
Yeah, they had that whole goodbye picture, like him in the tunnel with the black and white silhouette.
Yeah,
It's
and
very sad, kind of final thing. Goodbye, New
yeah,
England.
but isn't that interesting, Louis, that comes out a few days after the Chargers announced that we're not going to be retaining Philip Rivers? Because you can go tampering is, I mean, come on, you may, yeah, okay,
Okay, no, if it's
part.
tampering, then Miami's like the most guilty of all with all the crap we've been
No,
doing
I'm
with the
just pointing
agents
out,
and stuff.
it's one thing to be going to a guy and saying, we're going to offer you this contract and really go hard, but it's another thing to go wink, wink and say, I'm going to call the friend of a friend and just make sure, it's like the middle school where you don't want to tell the girl you like her, so your friend of the friend tells her friend that you like her. I think that's been going on now with the Chargers, and the Chargers basically are saying, "Look, we want you badly." And you probably saw the conversation I was having on that. Why is that the Chargers desperately need to build a fan base right now? I don't think there's a lot of excitement in Los Angeles for the Chargers. I think the most popular team for a long time in Los Angeles has been the Raiders. And I think a lot of those fans still like the Raiders, even in Las Vegas. And I think the second most popular team that's been a traditional team for the longer time fans is the Rams, and who have also been pretty successful lately. And so the Chargers are trying to come in to that market and grab market share, because there's a lot of people in San Diego that don't like the Chargers anymore. They were upset that they've left. And I think they have other alternatives. They can go root for the San Francisco 49ers, who are playing the Super Bowl right now. They can go to Vegas and root for the Raiders. And so the Chargers, I think, are hitting a desperate point now with that. Going in and using the Rams Stadium, they need to make a splash. And so the best way to do that is to
Tom Brady.
go sign Tom Brady. And so they're going to pay him a monster deal for probably 2 or 3 years just to get him in here. And I think they want a quarterback too. I don't think Anthony Lynn has the job security right now to trade up to 3 from 6 to get Tua and have him sit for a year. I could see the Chargers making a move for Herbert. I could see that because he's more into the West Coast from Oregon. And if he might be something they really chase if they don't get Brady. But we'll see if the tea leaves I'm reading make sense. But to me, the writing's out there right now that the Chargers are planning on signing Tom Brady.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like if that's the case, then I can definitely see Tom Brady is way more box office than Philip Rivers, even in his best day, was. Like Philip Rivers is the forgotten man of the elite quarterbacks, I want to say. Like when push comes to shove, I think his stats will get him in there because Philip Rivers has had really, really good seasons. He'll get into the Hall of Fame, but nobody thinks about him when you're talking about top quarterbacks. And like even in his best days, it was like, I mean, yeah, Philip Rivers, he's kind of an afterthought with Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, for God's sakes. I feel sorry for the guy, honestly, because Philip Rivers has spent years being a really good quarterback and just nobody remembers him. Like, he has no market value whatsoever. So you throw Brady in there, and all of a sudden everybody's going to come screaming to get his jersey. There's not even close to a comparison there. So, and I feel
I'm with
sorry
you.
for him trying to find the new job, because if we're looking at this, and we're looking market value specifically and not just quarterbacking prowess, which, by the way, Philip Rivers has started to fall off because he's like starting to run out of gas. But with Philip Rivers, whoever his new team ends up being, my guess is he's going to have to compete with some young guy, because Philip Rivers is as good as he has been in his whole career, as good as he may still be. He just doesn't get people excited. He doesn't. And I don't think it's fair, but it's the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I agree with that, Lewis. I was just trying to look up where his jersey sale ranked at.
Oh, or were you?
Found it. As I was just going to point out to you that
Mahomes is number one, Brady's two, but I don't know about Rivers. I don't think Rivers is anywhere.
Brady was two for like several years, or number one for several years, and Mahomes passed him. But my point was with that is, what is the major difference in your offense between Philip Rivers and Tom Brady? Obviously, Tom Brady is going to be considered one of the best ever, far more popular, but I don't know that he's a much better quarterback at 42 than Philip Rivers is at 37.
He's like Joe Montana to the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, but the difference though is the tickets and the sales.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to get fan base, Tom Brady's way more valuable for exactly everything you just said, because who cares about Philip Rivers? I mean, he's not that exciting. He's a 37-year-old quarterback who's never won anything. Tom Brady's won 6 Super Bowls or whatever it is. So he's just a much, much bigger name. And again, everything seems to me to be lined up. There's no reason. If you're the Chargers, why would you get rid of Philip Rivers right now? Why wouldn't you wait at least until free agency or until after the draft to see how that shook out? And if you didn't get the guys you wanted, then you'd have Philip Rivers. But if you're really worried about Tom Brady signing and you want to basically lay out the red carpet and say, we want you so bad, we're going to do whatever it takes to get you, that's how you do that. You announce that Philip Rivers is not returning. So it's very clear to Tom Brady that that job's wide open.
Yeah. And even if it's not Brady, like I keep saying it, San Diego. Can I just call them San Diego, because that's what they are, for God's sakes?
I do the same thing.
It's like, really, they're the San Diego Chargers. I don't care if they're in LA. Anyway.
Yeah. I
like it. Even if Brady doesn't go to LA, there's the other option out there is still better than Philip Rivers. Like, could you imagine what kind of a marketing ploy it would be if they could play up like this Drew Brees homecoming, going back to the team where he was originally from? Welcome back to the Chargers, Drew Brees. He's a free agent too. Way. I don't think he'll go there. I don't. But
Brees is either retired or staying with Peyton. I can tell you that for sure. But no. I mean, even Brees, like, he even announced today that he'd be fine taking less snaps. So he's in no. I think Tom Brady's legitimately upset with the Patriots. I think it's not public, but his mannerisms are suggesting that. He started pulling his, they moved his kids and they're selling their house out of that school system. But I think Brady, I don't know where he's at. I have to look it up, but he's somewhere in the middle. Like, you think about that. He's in the middle of the pack for the last several years at what a quarterback gets paid in the NFL. All these quarterbacks are getting paid more than Tom Brady. And what was the reasoning for that? The reasoning was Tom Brady has been giving the Patriots for years team-friendly deals because he wants to win Super Bowls. And I would say this year...
I mean, the dude won 6. It's time for him to get paid. Jeez.
Well, I think this year was pretty rough because, the Patriots just did not have... They were lacking talent this year. I don't know how else to say it. The receiving core was pretty bad.
And every chance to infuse it, they wound up removing it like 3 weeks later. Josh Gordon got in trouble. Antonio Brown got kicked out.
That's because they're scraping the bottom of the barrel with anybody they can get. And the reason those guys are available is because they're in trouble. But who was that receiver they had last year that they picked up? They traded for, who was pretty good. His name is slipping my mind, but they let him go to a different team this year.
Was it? I think I know who you're talking about.
The Rams?
Yes, Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks. He was a good receiver, and they didn't want to pay him. They just let him go because they didn't want to pay him a bigger contract.
Yes, the eternal New England frugality.
Well, I think that's kind of stuck with Tom Brady. I think he looked at it and he said, "Why am I giving you guys all these money breaks and you're not chasing and signing the best possible players around me?" And I think that upset him. I
Not
really
since
do.
Randy Moss, man.
Yeah, and so I think Brady's just like, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And so I don't think the Patriots are trying to push him out. I think Brady's ready to try a different chapter, and I think his wife may be playing into that. I think she may want to be getting out of the Boston area, and I my two spots right now for Brady, I think is it's going to be the Chargers or the Raiders. I think he's going to one of those two teams personally, but we'll see. But both those teams, I think there's the excitement factor of Los Angeles and Las Vegas. But Tom Brady probably realizes if you go to the Chargers and they make a hard run at it, the Chargers, go all in, everything they can do to put a good team with him. They've got enough pieces there right now to get competitive very quickly in San Diego. They've got some pretty good offensive linemen. If they keep Melvin Gordon, they've got him as a back. Some decent receivers. They have the foundation in place. If they go big in free agency and try to bring in some guys, maybe even make some trades and stack the team together like the Rams did a year or two ago, the Chargers can absolutely make a run at the Super Bowl if they have a really aggressive offseason like that.
Well, it'll definitely answer the question of who's to credit for all these years. We've often wondered who was more responsible for their success, whether it was Brady or Belichick. If they part ways, we're gonna know the answer real quick.
I always say this jokingly. What would be very Bill Belichick? Very Bill Belichick would be to sign Philip Rivers and then beat the Chargers 72-0 with Philip Rivers.
Oh my God! You know what? That would probably happen too.
I know. I thought about that. I'm like, don't be shocked if the Patriots grab Philip Rivers to be their veteran quarterback. Just wouldn't shock me at all.
Not at all. Oh boy. All right, so we discussed that. There are a few more things we can talk about. So
Okay.
I saw this other thing today that apparently Barry Jackson is acting as a mouthpiece from one player's camp straight to Chris Greer. The player in question is one Frank Gore, who has made
I
it.
saw that.
He wants to come home again. He wants to come home. The prodigal son wants to return. What do you think, Chad? Would you I understand the youth movement and all that jazz, but I mean, maybe this is just because I'm a nostalgia I'm like for me nostalgia is like drugs, and I always want all the old players to come home for a homecoming. Would you be upset for Frank Gore to come back to Miami for a year or two?
I think Frank Gore is a fantastic person, a fantastic football player. I have no interest in bringing him in as the featured back.
No, not the featured back, but
I don't think that's what he's on, and I don't have any interest in paying him very much money because we're rebuilding a young team right now, so it doesn't make any sense to put a bunch of money into a veteran back. If he's willing to sign a very team-friendly deal,
apparently he's very willing to come back. If he was willing to go to Barry Jackson and say, "Listen, tell Chris Greer I want home," that's how bad it is.
It's one thing to say I really want to come back and play for the Dolphins. It's another thing to say, "Oh, they've got $100 million in cap space and they don't have a starting running back." Yeah, why don't you pay me to be your starting running back? If that's what he's saying, that's a little bit different. But if you're using him as short, what I didn't like with when Adam Gase was here, he went heavily with Frank Gore over Kenyon Drake, which I didn't really agree with.
Yeah, I didn't like that either, no.
And it wasn't because Frank Gore is a bad back. It's just that Frank Gore, I don't know if he ever had a lot of this. He's a very consistent short yardage runner, but he just doesn't have that explosive factor to run to the house.
Yeah, he can't outrun people anymore, especially not now. But he's a bruiser.
He's a bruiser, but as a defense, you start to figure that out, and you can really cheat because you can be like, you know what, I can play my safeties up because I know if Frank Gore breaks through the line and gets by my linebackers, we're just going to run him down within 20 yards. He's not going to be gone. And so you're not that afraid of Frank Gore getting out in space and outrunning everybody. And so knowing that, he's kind of limited. But if you're talking about pairing him with somebody like Dobbins from Ohio State, maybe a similar type of body style, or one of those top backs, and putting Frank Gore with him, I'm all for that because one is he's going to be a good mentor for a young back, and I absolutely like Frank Gore coming in and maybe getting 5 touches a game. just, when you give your guy a breather and you want to have a reliable guy that you can, run the football with, Frank Gore is ideal for that. So we definitely aren't talking about having a bunch of running backs. We don't know what we're going to do with all of them. I don't know if any of the current running backs on the team are going to even make the team.
Patrick Laird.
Maybe. I don't know.
He'll make it.
I like the guy, but I can't say you couldn't bring in 3 backs from anywhere and maybe not have more explosive backs than what we currently have. I don't have anything against them. But
explosive, no, I'll agree with that. But you also need solid people who can actually get the job done. Because even if they're slower, if they can get the 5 yards you need, then go for it. You know what I mean? Because it's better than having a guy who's fast.
It's hard to judge our backs because our line was so. We absolutely. I still don't know how we won the games we won. Because
Ryan Fitzpatrick knows how to take off like a shot and throw his body to the ground.
Well, honestly, I would never use this analogy seriously, but I kind of use it with the Dolphins. They were just like playing Tecmo Bowl, and you know what? We can't run the ball at all, so we're just going to throw it up to Devontae Parker and see what happens.
Yeah, running the ball in Tecmo is a waste of time.
But seriously, though, Miami could not run the football at all this whole year. We just don't have a good offensive line, and every defensive line would just manhandled our offensive line.
But you know who did run? You know who did do well? I'm going to say his name. You know what name it is.
No, I don't know anybody that ran
Patrick Laird.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
He looked.
Let's put it this way: of all the running backs they threw out there, Patrick Laird looked the best. How about that?
Who was the leading rusher for the team, Melissa?
Aside from Fitzpatrick, Patrick Laird.
I'm just saying, Ryan Fitzpatrick led this team.
Mark Walton was able to run behind it. Somebody's got to be able to do it right.
Yeah, I don't know. It's Kalen Ballage. I think a lot of people were expecting.
Bye. Bye, Kalen. Yeah, nice guy. Lightsaber meme was funny, but no, time to go. Bye.
So I'm 100% convinced, though, we don't have a starting running back on our team, and we're going to have to use one of our draft picks on the draft.
J.K. Dobbins, Frank Gore, Patrick Laird. Next.
I'd be all right with that.
I love it. Listen, I want the Titans to cut Cameron Wake so we can re-sign Cameron Wake. I don't care if he's a situational pass rusher or not. I want Cam Wake back too. I want them all back. Bring them all back.
Sorry, buddy. No, that was the defense we run. Cameron Wake doesn't really.
I remember when I was a kid, and I was hearing. Well, not really a kid, but I was younger than what I was now. But I remember when Ivan Rodriguez. This is baseball now, but I remember when Ivan Rodriguez had left the Marlins and he went to go play with the Detroit Tigers along with Miguel Cabrera, and basically I remember that he was getting ready to retire. He was reaching the point where his time was up almost, and I remember screaming so loud, let's bring back Pudge one more time, one last hurrah, because it seems like he wants to be in my. I've been that way all my life, Chad. It's like I want all these favorite players to come back one more time just to do a homecoming. Like the Jason Taylor thing was awesome. I loved that so much. Like, he came back one more year. He wasn't like a world beater, but he contributed a little bit, like a Cameron Wake would. Just saying, and he ended his career exactly where he should have been. That's the way I look at things, and it's just that's how I am. For Frank Gore, who's been a Miami guy all his life, except that he's never actually been able to play in Miami except for 1 year, I feel like he should come. Even if it's a retirement tour, he needs to come one more time. That's just how I am.
Like I said, Cameron Wake doesn't fit the defensive scheme, so he's not realistic. But Frank Gore, absolutely. I mean, like I said, if I want a guy that's a backup, able to carry 5 carries a game, be a good role model, help players develop, and somebody when you feel really comfortable, you need that tough 1 or 2 yards for sure, a 3rd and 1. I love handing the ball to Frank Gore on 3rd and 1. He's hard to stop from getting a yard. He's really savvy about filling the crease on the offensive line and getting that yard. So you use him right, bring him back. I'm all for it.
I'm going to argue with you on the Cam Wake scheme thing. I know he doesn't fit what the scheme is, but you know what? The scheme didn't do much for pass rushing, now did it? We need a pass rusher.
We didn't have players. The defensive ends in Brian Flores' defense have got to play the run, and Cameron Wake's below. He's never has been good, but at
Oh,
this
I know
point,
that,
he
but
can't
there's gonna
play
be
the
time
rest.
if everything works out the way it's going to, then there are gonna be times when we're gonna have like a lead, and that's when it's time to let the dogs loose, and that's when you get Cam Wake out there.
No, I don't disagree that he's very capable of being a situational pass rusher, but not for what he's getting paid. Cameron Wake isn't playing football still and not expecting to get paid pretty well. And Miami's just not in a position where their team is right now to pay a guy approaching 40 as a situational pass rusher. It doesn't
And
make
he's not
sense for
shaking
them.
loose anyway. But I get it. It's just
Uh,
I'm a
the guy,
nostalgia. I'm a nostalgia. It's like it's a drug for me. It really is.
it's hard with all the hype over Tua and everything, but the guy that I love right now is Isaiah Simmons. But he may be gone before he picked fifth. But I mean, the guy's ridiculously talented.
He is.
And with what Brian Flores could do with him, it would be very exciting. Because he's just one of those guys that can cover a tight end, can rush the passer, just can really do a lot. But I'm not holding my hopes out because the team's going to have to address quarterback. But, if Tua did happen to be gone, somebody jumps up surprisingly and takes him, getting Simmons at 5 and Love at 18 would make me hurt my feelings too much.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't blame you, man. Isaiah Simmons, Jordan Love, and then I don't know somebody. Yes, a lineman, any lineman.
Yeah, best lineman on the board, 26.
Yeah, I'll take that. Alrighty, so we're approaching the hour, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it off here. Any final thoughts before this week's episode comes to a close?
No, I think enjoy the Super Bowl and
predictions. That's what we need to do.
Super Bowl predictions.
Yes, make your prediction, Mr. Ronabom. Who wins and why, and who do you want to win?
I feel like the Chiefs are going to win. I don't know that anybody has an answer for what Patrick Mahomes does with the speed at their wide receiver position right now. They score points so well, and the way to beat the Chiefs is to play in cold weather games or games that make it hard to pass. And it's going to probably be beautiful in Miami on Sunday. And it's going to be really, really hard to stop Mahomes. So I love the matchup that the 49ers run a more old school, pound the football offense. And the Chiefs, they essentially rely on winning by scoring so many points that you have no choice but just to try to keep up. So I'm going with Chiefs, though, Lewis.
All right, and I'm also going to go Chiefs. I think, again, after watching what Patrick Mahomes has done against all these defenses, it's just hard to picture anybody besides them winning. I think, all those weapons that he's got, the elite level of coaching he's got, he himself is an elite quarterback at this point. It's not even like, it's just his talent. No. It's everything. I've never seen an offense just so loaded from top to bottom with a coach who will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Andy Reid, the moment he's eligible, is going into the Hall of Fame.
He should be. I've watched a lot of football, Lewis, and I'm not saying he's the greatest.
No, he's definitely not. That's Don Shula. I don't care about Belichick. Everybody shut up.
When you talk about quarterbacks, Mahomes is practically a rookie. He's in his second, third year here, and
he's one of a kind. Nobody's played football like him.
He is the best I've ever seen, and I watched Marino in awful years, and Marino's arm was unreal. Like the speed he released the ball, and the throws he could make were unreal. And Mahomes has that. I mean, he has that Marino type arm and release, but he's a lot more mobile, and so it's scary.
I keep saying it. He's playing like he's playing in his backyard. He just runs around and then he throws it up, and miraculously it goes where it needs to go.
His arm is so strong, he doesn't even need to set his feet. And what's uncanny about Mahomes is he makes all these odd throws off balance, but he's so accurate. We had Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler had an absolute cannon of an arm, but he was horrible on mechanics, and his balls were all over the place, accuracy-wise. Mahomes seems to be able to do it and throw accurately. And there still hasn't been a team yet that's figured out how to stop Mahomes yet. He's just so good. I'm really jealous for the Chiefs because I can't imagine what that feels like to have a 23-year-old quarterback that's that talented, knowing that, for the next 10 to 15 years, that's your quarterback. That'd be pretty nice from where we're sitting.
What I'll say, Chad, is that we'll get a real litmus test on what Mahomes can do when he's thrown into a situation like Brady has been lately, where his weapons are not Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, those guys. Like, I'm not saying Mahomes does not deserve credit. I'm saying that let's see what he does when he literally does not have everything set in place for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll see. Andy Reid is a very specific type of player. He likes running backs that catch and are fast and run screens, and he likes really quick, fast receivers. And they've got a whole team of it now. They're so quick.
And little afterthought that I'm going to add: the reason I'm rooting for Kansas City is not because of Mahomes, is not because of anybody else on that team, is because our boy Sam Madison, defensive backs coach, he got hired, and I'm rooting for him to make it all the way. He deserves another ring.
I thought you were talking about Chad Henne.
No. Oh, yeah, Chad Henne and Matt Moore. That's exact. Like, isn't that something? Chad Henne and Matt Moore are getting Super Bowl rings.
Yeah, part of me was like, can you imagine if the Titans had make it? We've got 3 ex-Dolphins quarterbacks in the last decade. All
in the Super Bowl together. It's like, oh, boy.
With Damian Williams at
running back, yeah.
Yeah,
Lord Almighty.
Life of the Dolphins fan right there.
That's Dolphins fandom in a nutshell. Look at all these players who left Miami.
I like to see the Chiefs. This is the first time the Chiefs have been in the Super Bowl since the first Super Bowl.
The 50 years, yeah.
Yeah, and so the 49ers have like 5 Super Bowl wins now from back in the great years. So
I'm still a little upset. I'm still a little upset it's not the State Farm Bowl. I really am.
Yeah, that's crazy. So it'll be fun though. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it too. Alrighty, so we're gonna go ahead and call it here. Thank you so much, Mr. Ronnebaum, for being with me today. I know you got some stuff to do, so we're gonna go ahead and end it here. So thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all next time.